Hi, to you and your listeners. I've been working this farm for over 20 years. Early mornings and late nights are just part of the job. There's always something to tend to, whether it's feeding the animals, fixing fences, or keeping an eye on the fields. It's quiet work, usually predictable, and I like it that way. That's why, when I heard noises coming from the barn in the early hours of the morning, it immediately set me on edge. I finished checking on the cattle 2 hours earlier, and everything had seemed fine. But now there were strange sounds, low thumps, and what almost sounded like a faint, metallic clicking. I grabbed my flashlight and headed toward the barn, the cold night air biting at my face. The noises grew louder as I approached. I could feel my stomach tightened with concern. Maybe it was just a coyote nosing around, I thought, but something about the sound didn't feel right. It wasn't animal-like, not entirely. The moment I stepped into the barn, I knew something was wrong. The air was thick, almost stifling, and the usual smells of hay and livestock were overpowered by a faint, acrid scent that I couldn't place. The animals were huddled together in one corner, pressed so tightly against the far wall that it looked unnatural. Cows that usually wandered lazily in their stalls were now trembling, their eyes wide with fear. Even the chickens, usually restless, were utterly silent. I shone my flashlight around the barn, sweeping it over the beams and the ground, trying to find the source of their distress. At first, I saw nothing unusual, just the familiar clutter of farm tools and bales of hay. Then, in the far corner, the beam of light caught something. It wasn't an animal. It wasn't human either. A small gray figure stood there, barely illuminated by the flashlight. Its skin was smooth and almost shiny, and its head was slightly too large for its slender body. For a moment, I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. It didn't move. It just stood there, half hidden in the shadows, as though it was waiting for something. For what felt like an eternity, neither of us moved. My flashlight trembled in my hand, the beam flickering slightly, as if the light itself was uncertain about illuminating whatever stood before me. The figure finally shifted, a subtle motion that made my heart lurch. It turned its head, not toward me, but toward one of the cows huddled in the corner. Slowly, it raised a thin arm, holding a small device that glowed faintly, casting a soft blue light onto the barn walls. The glow wasn't bright, but it felt unnatural, the kind of light that doesn't belong in a place like this. The cow nearest to it made a low, panicked sound, but didn't move. The device emitted a faint hum as the figure waved it in a deliberate motion over the animal, almost like it was scanning or examining it. I wanted to shout, to do something, but my body wouldn't cooperate. I stood there, frozen with fear, every muscle in my body locked in place. My mind screamed at me to run or confront whatever this was, but I couldn't bring myself to move. The figure didn't seem to notice me, or maybe it just didn't care. Its gestures were precise, almost methodical, as if this was something it had done countless times before. I had no idea what I was witnessing, but the sheer impossibility of it kept me rooted to the spot, my breath shallow and my pulse hammering in my ears. Before I could summon the courage to act or even speak, the figure lowered its arm, the faint glow of the device disappearing as abruptly as it had appeared. For a moment, it stood motionless, as if considering its next move, or perhaps sensing my presence after all. Then, without warning, a brilliant flash of light erupted from where the figure stood. It wasn't blinding, but it was enough to force me to blink and shield my eyes. When the light faded, the figure was gone. The barn was silent once again. The air felt lighter, the strange, acrid scent had vanished, and the animals, though still tense, began to stir cautiously. Nothing had been disturbed, nothing had been harmed, and yet, everything about the moment felt impossibly wrong. I stood there for a long time, gripping my flashlight as my mind raced to comprehend what I'd just witnessed. It was as if reality had fractured for those brief moments, offering me a glimpse into something I wasn't meant to see. In the weeks that followed, I found myself watching the cow that had been closest to the figure. At first, I thought nothing had changed. After all, it seemed unharmed, just as it had been before. But as time went on, I started noticing little things. The cow was healthier, stronger. It seemed more energetic, its coat shinier, and its appetite more robust. While the other animals remained unchanged, this one stood out. It was subtle at first, but soon, even my wife mentioned how good it looked. I didn't know what to say. I couldn't tell her what I'd seen. And I haven't told anyone else either. Who would believe me? A farmer claiming an alien showed up in his barn and scanned one of his cows? It sounds ridiculous just thinking about it, but I can't forget it. No matter how much I try to rationalize or push it out of my mind, the memory lingers. The gray figure, the glowing device, the way it vanished without a trace, it's all burned into my thoughts. Every time I step into the barn at night, I find myself glancing into the shadows, half expecting to see that faint blue glow again. Whatever it was, I doubt I'll ever understand it. But one thing's for sure, I'll never look at the quiet nights on my farm the same way again. Cheers, anonymous farmer. If you found this story intriguing, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss our latest uploads. Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your take. Thanks for watching.